of time, small groups of human beings have instilled artificial circular limitations on the minds of their subjects through the procession of history. Traditionally, the limitations are imprinted on the servile population through a cunning use of language, instruction, and media for the purposes of conquest, social cohesion, and authoritative order by harnessing the human resources of the broad population.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the psychology of control, state of mind. I'm going to go over how we're controlled, to what extent and by whom, and the last part will be what we can do for humanity's future. Next slide. So are we controlled? That's a rhetorical question. Many might think that we're not controlled by higher powers, and many might think we are. Some might be conscious of it, and others might not be aware of it at all. So the first topic that I want to discuss today is media and the influence it has over us in our lives. We go day to day and we're watching TV, we're on our phones. These are just a couple examples of how this is directly influenced in our lives. First of all, the television set, many of you watch, and when you're sitting down watching the television, your brain waves actually change to a slower, different wave, which is more like a hypnotic state. That aside, what you're watching has no value whatsoever. I'm not saying that there aren't shows that are educational, but many of them give you a distorted view of reality. Second one is the education system. Of course, it's good to be here at school as we all are right now, but many of you come here not knowing exactly what you want to do, and others know what you want to do. But compulsory schooling since the age of kindergarten to 12th grade is a lot of information that you're receiving and you're openly accepting. A lot of people tend to question it sometimes and ask if it's really the truth. Others might not ask anything about it and just blindly accept the truth. Just like when they said the earth was flat. People accepted it, and other people that would openly say that's not true were either ridiculed or executed. The third one is prescription drugs. I know not everyone takes prescription drugs, but many people in this population and society do. It can be anything to antidepressants or just a simple allergy drug, but many of these drugs have adverse side effects. And the main ones that I want to talk about are SSRIs. These fall under the category of antidepressants, and many people in this population are on those. And it blatantly says on the label, may cause mass killings and suicide. So I want to question that, and I think, okay, if I was depressed, why would I want to be taking something that may cause me to shoot someone or even take my own life? People blindly overlook this main fact, and it can sometimes cause many damaging effects. And a lot of the research shows that past shootings, like at schools like Columbine and all this stuff, these people were on these type of drugs. So to what extent and by whom? The control system spreads into all aspects of our life. Our minds can be very accepting of manipulation. So we may go day to day thinking that we're okay, we're in control of our life. We make the decisions and we conduct every aspect of it. But there's also many parts that are seeded into your life, like money, banking, media, relationships, all these things are controlled one way or another by a higher society power, which can say the elites. So many people are conscious and unconscious of these things. When you're conscious of it, you're aware that there are these higher powers that have these control factors in your life. And you're unconscious of it, you're going day by day, okay, I'm doing this, I'm going to school, I'm going to my job, I'm going here, I'm going to eat this, and it's pretty much very repeating, and you're not aware of the fact that, why am I doing this? Why am I eating this? Why am I reading this? Why am I watching this? And when you actually think about that, and you start to question it, it becomes a lot more apparent that there's some things that you're doing that you might not have realized before the impact they have on your life. Okay. So what does it mean for humanity's future? I'm going to read this quote. Whatever they choose, who is they? They is every single one of us making the conscious decision to remember that we never lost control. We always had it. The illusion of others in control will only prevent the natural flow of our creative power. And that quote is by me. So once you realize that there's people trying to manipulate you and trying to tell you what to do and how to do it, and you take a stand and you say, wait, let me double think this. I have a mind of my own, and I'm able to think things out for myself as a human being. Once you know this, all these other things fall out of place. It doesn't matter who's at the top, who's at the bottom, where you might live, where you might eat, your income status, all that doesn't matter. What matters is that you're aware of yourself and your own mind and what you do on a day-to-day basis. Who you're talking to, who you surround yourself with, what you're putting into your body, what you're reading, all these things become part of your decisions, and you take control of it. You never lost control. You always had the control. The people that say that they're in the control was an illusion the whole time. You just gave into that, and you were born into the society, and you accepted everything. And it's not everybody's fault, because you're a little kid and you're very susceptible to a lot of these manipulations. But once you get older, you start thinking for yourself. And this is kind of like termed rebellion. You're growing up and your parents say, he's rebelling, he doesn't want to do this, he doesn't want to do that. In a way, you are separating from them, but it shows that you're developing your own mind. So I want to end with just knowing that all of us, including me, are creative human beings that have the potential to do anything we put our minds to. And don't let anybody or anything set you back from what you really want to do in life. Thank you.
All right, Martin, share with us your thoughts, please.
Okay, first of all, I had no idea what the video introduction was about. The intro, the lead-in could have been better. Organizational skills could have been better. I feel like because we weren't using flashcards or anything, it was like some of the things you were saying were like, I felt like they were like tangents from tangents, and kind of got lost when I was being introduced with all that information. The visual aid was fairly easy to follow with the little amount of words. Good eye contact with and gestures, good delivery, no flashcards, and visual aid could have been more visually pleasing. I feel like I got lost a couple times in the presentation, but overall you provided some very good examples.
Thanks.
Well, I like the video clip at the beginning. It's dramatic, it's ominous, it seems to suggest a serious and important subject, but you never really tie back into it very clearly. There's never any additional reference to it, so it does feel a little bit like it's standing out there on its own without necessarily being something that's going to be integrated into the presentation. We know the subject area involves some kind of control. But I'm not exactly sure that the controls that you are going to be talking about are very clearly defined. What kind of social controls or interpersonal controls or mind controls are you talking about? It just, it seems very general in nature. It is the problem that I have with most of the speech is that there's a high degree of abstractness to this. If you were in a philosophy class or you were just getting together with your friends late at night having a cup of coffee and talking for 10 hours, you might be able to get to the root of what it is you're talking about. But in a short presentation, it really feels like it's kind of all over the place. You need to have something that's a little bit focused. And I think you can probably make this work better by focusing on a particular type of control. At one point you mentioned, the kids not wanting to cooperate anymore and being described as being rebellious. Well, let's talk about that kind of control. What kind of control were they subject to before? How are they resisting that kind of control? Why is it a good thing and important that they do this, or what kinds of problems does it cause for them to resist that kind of control? I think that would have been something that kind of contained your subject enough so that we could focus on it, and it would give you the ability to think of some practical examples and actually get some research and some dirt under your fingernails when you're looking at that kind of, what happens when adolescents, resist the rules that their parents try to impose on them, or the conventions that society or school wants them to happen. Why, what are the good things or the negative things that happen from either of those sorts of things? I think you'd have a lot easier time getting a hold of something that an audience could understand if you had that kind of focus. As it is, I kind of feel like I said I'm listening to somebody who's got some interesting ideas, but is just thinking them out loud for us instead of having written a paper or researched it or studied it and now is synthesizing all of the material that they've discovered into something that's coherent for us. And that's where you need to be at this point. It really shouldn't just be a think piece. It needs to be something that contains some very substantive kinds of things to it. Even the examples that you make general references to are still kind of abstract. So that to me is the biggest problem with the speech. When Martin says the visuals aren't particularly, what was the term he used? Visually appealing. I understand. I think that the font is a little small, so it could be bigger, and you get the black background with the kind of lighter color lettering on it. I don't know that always works very easily for some people to read. Some folks have a harder time with that. So it wasn't automatically problematic, but I think there are things there that if you thought them out a little bit more, you could say, you know what, this might work better. This would be a little bit more interesting. I think George Bernard Shaw can get away with quoting himself. I'm not quite sure that we're up to the point where you can quote yourself, I like the idea that you're talking about, but I tell you what, when I listen back to that quote, I'm going, okay, so what does that mean? So I feel a little bit like you trip yourself up with that instead. Now, on the other hand, I think you do a very nice job talking to the audience. You use your voice pretty effectively. You've got excellent audience contact, that sort of thing. I just think you need to have something more concrete to be sharing with us. All right, thank you.
Thanks.